Before we hop into this episode, I have one favor to ask of you. If you've got any kind of information or inspiration from this podcast, it would mean the world to me if you hit the subscribe button. Just like most podcasts out there, there are more people that watch this show that are not subscribed than that are subscribed. And so if you want to help me get bigger and better guests for this show as we go along, and I hope you do stick along, it would mean the world to me to hit that subscribe button so that we can make it happen. Thank you. Let's get into the interview. It's insane to see your longevity in the business space with Spartan, with everything that you've done, a new book coming out as well. It seemed like your father and your mom had almost two different sides of what they brought to you. What traits or habits do you think that they instilled in you that you're grateful for today?
Definitely yin and yang. They started out together. They started out in the 70s with poor lifestyles like everybody had. They learned to eat TV dinners like everybody. They learned to smoke cigarettes. They learned to eat donuts. And then my mom walked into a health food store in the 70s trying to find a different way to hopefully save her mom who had cancer. And she met a yogi, and that yogi got her into yoga, meditation, and she became vegan instantly overnight. She started long distance running. She believed in cold showers because the yogi believed in cold therapy. She believed in no sunscreen because it had chemicals. She removed all the processed food. It was completely nutty. It was so many years ago. You're talking about 50 years ago, okay? And now all this stuff is cool and hip, and I didn't want any part of it. My dad, he had business going for him. He was a serial entrepreneur. He was, in my mind, a tough guy. He hung out with tough guys. It was a tough neighborhood. So, from my mom, I had this health and wellness, but extreme and tough. For my dad, I had business and philosophy, extreme and tough. And so I guess the common, the Venn diagram, tough sat in the middle there. And I got a little bit or a lot from both of them. And then, we grow up and we try to make our own way, and here we are.
When I heard about the transcendence loop that your mom introduced you to, and then to see where Spartan began, to see where it's at now, you made it easier in a way. It's insane to see the growth. And I know with the new book now, it's extreme balance in a way, but it seems like the people you're surrounded by, your parents, you definitely, balance doesn't really seem like a word that I would attribute to you. How did this come to be?
Extreme balance, those words?
Yeah.
Well, extreme is definitely one of my words for sure.
Yeah.
Balance was from my mom. I was not balanced at all. Matter of fact, I don't even like the word balanced. So,
right.
But when I met the co-author, when I met Ben Askren and then David, sports psychologist, it became clear that there are these pushes and pulls in life, and somewhere in the middle is the right place. And so it was the right word for the book. The extreme thinking that we've all been taught, if we want to win a competition, is we're going to kill our competition. We're going to wake up every day and we're going to eat them alive. And that's the way we've thrived on the planet for as long as we have, right? Survival of the fittest. But there is an argument that you also need to respect your opponent. And so when you look at the two ends of the spectrum there, you're going to kill them, you want to respect them. There's some balance there in the middle that's really, really tricky. And if you could figure that out, the world is yours. And it's not only that, it's like we've been told, it's instinctual that we should be extremely organized, extremely fastidious, buttoned up, have every minutia figured out when it comes to our planning. But on the other side, we got to be ready for anything. We got to be completely malleable. We got to be able to move on a dime and deal with the unexpected. That's two different ends of the spectrum. So balance is somewhere in the middle. So when you think about it that way, you're like, okay, you got to be extreme, but you got to be balanced. If it was easy, I guess everybody would be wildly successful in whatever their craft is, but it's not.
Yeah. It seems like for you, throughout your career, you've been able to pivot extremely well. It seems that way, at least from the outside perspective, of course. How have you been able to pivot so effectively, and how do you know when to pivot? I feel like it's such a difficult thing for people. They just stick too long in something that isn't really meant for them.
What I think about pivoting, and it's a scary word because it's closely aligned with quitting, right?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it for 40 years, and I've come to the conclusion that you must be in tune. You must be in tune with your purpose and your why, right? Like what's the reason you're doing what you're doing? For me, your why changes.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose changes over life. For me, the first decade, 15 years, was I tough enough? Could I hang with the boys in the neighborhood? Was I, could I build a business like my dad and the people around him did? So my whole purpose, my drive every day was just trying to get some pat on the back that I was tough enough, that I could hang, right? That I was part of the club. Then I went to Wall Street and it all became about money. How do I make money? My whole purpose, my why, wake up every day, go to bed. I need to make money. So focused on it, in fact, that I probably would have done better had I had a little balance. And then the third part of my life, the third chapter here, my purpose is about changing lives. And I stumbled upon this one. I did not set out. I'd be lying to you if I said I set out to start a business that was going to make everybody healthy and change their lives. I set out selfishly to do this because I loved it. I loved it. I loved roping people into it. I loved the adventure of it. I did not. I knew we could inspire people, but I didn't realize the total impact. I just got back from Croatia last night. We had a big race there, a world championship for our short distance events. It was so friggin' unbelievable. But going to this old world town, the cobblestones, the stairs, the event was incredible. But what was really incredible about it was all the people that came up to me from all around the world and just started tearing up and just said, "Hey, this thing changed my life. I saved my life. I'm back with my husband, back with my life. I lost 200 pounds. I gave up drinking. I gave up drugs." Like, the stories are unbelievable. And when I started to get a taste of that drug, of hearing people say that to me, that became the third chapter, my why. And so I'm addicted to it now. I probably got 100,000 between videos and letters and notes of people that have said, "Hey, this changed my life." So I live for it. I don't even know at this moment in time, I don't even know what else I would do. But in fairness, the first chapter of my life and the second chapter of my life, if you had asked me in the midst of it, I would have said, I don't know what else I would do either. But I don't know what else I would do. I really love this.
I think it's for good reason, man. You've been able to create a business that is the unsexy part of life that people want to avoid the most, yet build it into a business that is you really have a cult-like audience. Because like I said, I'm going to one next month. I have 20 other people. It took a second to, introduce people and want people to get into it. Because when you find the people that are actually into it, they're not just interested in it, they're committed to it. So you've heard the quote, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself most with, right? Well, that's more true than you could possibly imagine. And what if those 5 people were a human lie detector, an FBI negotiator, an ex-CIA spy, a billionaire, and everything in between? Well, that's exactly what I've been able to do with my podcast over these past few years. From starting in my car with no money, no experience, no following, not even a microphone, and now I'm collaborating with some of the most profound individuals in the world. And it's because of 2 simple things: crafting the perfect pitch so that when the person sees the message, they are open to actually entertaining the opportunity of speaking with you. And number 2, finding a way to get that pitch seen to begin with so that you actually can get in that room. And if you want to learn the skills and how I've been able to get the guests that I've been able to get in my show without any kind of audience or experience, the link in the description will be there for Get Your Guest, my course, and how I've been able to collaborate and connect with some profound individuals and show you how you can too. And it's
don't only focus on those that are interested. Rope in though, get 5. I challenge you to get 5 more people who have said no.
Yeah.
They're not like there was an older woman just now in Croatia 2-3 days ago. And I think she was smoking a cigarette even when her son introduced me to her. Maybe 60 years old, maybe 55, 60, and not in the best shape. And she said, I'm going to do it someday. I'm going to get, and I said, well, you can do it today or you can do it someday.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, meet me on the start line. I'm going to go out. I'm doing the race. Meet me on the start line. Do 1 mile of it, right? Just walk for the first mile. She ended up doing 7 kilometers. She was pissed. She was cursing. I saw her out there, but she ended up doing 7 kilometers. She didn't finish it, but then she posted about it. She was not planning on doing it. She would never sign up for one. She'd talk about it till the cows came home. She would not ever actually do it. And she did it because I just challenged her to come meet me on the start line. I met her where she was. And so I challenge you, I challenge anybody listening, get some people who would never do it. The folks that would do it, those are easy.
Yeah.
Those are a dime a dozen to get, right? But get the ones that are stuck on the couch like Velcro.
Yeah, you might have to lie to some people. Chris Davis, I mean, there's so many people that in the beginning, you even lied to people. And it's funny to look back now because the extent to how much you've made it easier for people from when it first started decades ago is insane to see how much it's developed. And even through COVID, to see that, like you said, the stories were the thing that you were getting paid through, not even just the money, because of how difficult it must have been to stick through it. What, from the beginning, the first chapter, second chapter of your life, from the swimming business to construction to Wall Street, what were some of the unseen things that you didn't realize you were getting from that has now helped you in your business today?
From doing all that, I think when you're in business and you're in that daily knife fight every day, all day, it softens your edges a bit. It makes you humble. Some people asked me this weekend in Croatia, how do you remain calm? Some people on the team, how do you remain calm with everything? And I said, well, I guess every single day I wake up for 40 plus years as an entrepreneur, every day we wake up, a large rock is dropped on my head every day. Like, could be the sun is shining, business is doing well, everything's going well, and then something happens. Mm-hmm. It's the reality of being an entrepreneur. And a rock is dropped on your head. And, after 40 years of getting a rock dropped on your head every single day, you start to build endurance. You start to realize that, as long as it doesn't kill you, as long as you keep taking one step forward, you will get through it. So what did I learn? I learned resilience. I certainly learned a bunch of tactical stuff about business, but at the end of the day, I learned resilience, and I learned that the business game takes care of those that don't quit. You just got to not quit. You got to just keep putting one foot in front of the other, turn a little left, turn a little right, try it a different way, learn, iterate. Just don't stop, because it is easy to quit. It would be so easy for me to go get a job and get paid and be home by 4 o'clock, or even work from home these days and fake work,
Yeah. A motto I live by is that life is simple, not easy. We know what we need to do, right? It sounds so simple when you say that. It's like, just keep going, just don't stop, and you're going to get to where you want to go. But that difficulty of just continuing on, especially when things are boring, when things aren't working, when you're not seeing it, I call invisible progress, of like just showing up when you don't need a result from it. Just to showing up is the result in itself.
Exactly.
Something for you that you've done with your kids, with yourself, it seems like most successful people do this, is they manufacture struggle in their life. And I'm curious, for you to build that resilience, what are some ways that people can manufacture struggle in their life to build it?
Well, it's the physical methodologies around, take the cold shower. Mm-hmm. Don't eat when you're hungry. Go out in the rain. Do the 300 burpees. Sweat. Sprint. Do the tough things. Park your car a mile from the grocery store. Carry the bags to the car, right? Take the stairs. Oh my God. Take the stairs in an airport instead of the escalator. I was thinking, in all the staircases around the world, it's basically empty real estate.
Yes.
I was thinking we should brand them Spartan.
I love that.
They should have giant billboards on staircases all around the world that, Spartan, because nobody uses them. They'll stay clean, we know.
Yeah.
I'm like the only one out there.
Yeah. Do you know of Michael Easter by chance?
I do.
He wrote The Scarcity Brain. He talks about the 2%. And I'm always, every time I go in the airport, I'm like, I think it has to be 1% or less than 1%, because I'm the only person ever walking on the stairs. And it's mind-boggling to me, because I think we've got to such a place in the world where people are unmotivated, undisciplined, depressed, and just at a place sees worse than ever. It seems like that, but I know it's definitely, we can compare from everywhere. What do you feel like is the core reason for why the world is where it is?
Well, so we are wired, all of us, with, ancient wiring, ancient computer programming that has us avoiding discomfort at all costs. So years ago, thousands of years ago, if we went out in the cold, we might freeze to death. If we went out in the hot, in the heat, we might sweat to death. Go too close to that ledge, you fall off it. You get too close to that lion, you get eaten. So our brains are telling us constantly, don't do that. Don't eat the salad. There's not enough calories. Eat the Twinkie. You don't know when you're going to get your next meal. And don't go to the gym. You're going to expend too much energy. We can't afford that energy. And so that wiring, that programming does not apply to today's environment. Today's environment, the reverse is needed. The salad is needed. The gym is needed. The sweating, the heat, the cold. And so here we are, wired the wrong way. Then comes along the billboard and the advertisement and the video that tells us that this thing is easier or more sexy or more fulfilling. And so we easily buy into it because our brains are wired that way. Our brains are not wired to buy hard, to buy, complicated and difficult and requiring commitment. Our brains don't want to do that. So it's like shooting fish in a barrel. If you're selling sugar, if you're selling candy, if you're selling easy, that's why we are where we are. And so a government has to step in. God forbid, half your audience, half my audience will jump off a building when they hear this. But the government has to step in. You have no choice, and say no. No, we're not going to eat this junk food, right? We're going to tax the hell out of it. You can't have a 42-ounce Slurpee. Can't do it. Oh my God, Joe, you're going to take away freedoms. Hey, idiots. Here's my response to that. Should we let 8-year-olds drive? Should we let 12-year-olds do heroin? We were smart enough to put guardrails around those things, right? If it's poison, no, we should not be allowed to do it to ourselves because we're too stupid to abstain from it ourselves.
Yeah, it's funny to see, like you said, your mom was talking about this decades ago. And even now, people will look at me and think that I'm on a diet just because I eat whole foods. And
Right.
it's mind-boggling that we're in the place in the world that seeing it that way is just the way that the world is. And there's so many things that it's the small things that really make a massive difference in the world. And I'm curious for you, like I said earlier, I think that inflicting suffering on yourself is something that you definitely do at the farm and in so many aspects of your life. If I were to come to the farm or come live with you for a few days, what are the habits that I find in your day that are just foundational in creating who you are?
Got to wake up early. You got to get in the cold early. You got to sweat on. You got to earn your breakfast. Going to try to get your last meal 3-4 hours before bedtime. I'm going to work all day. I mean, I wake up early. I earn my breakfast. I love salad. I work all day and I get to bed early. Very boring, nothing exciting. That's what I do every day.
It's the boring stuff. We want it to be overcomplicated, like you said, the brain earlier. It's like we feel that we need it to be overcomplicated because our brain always needs to be solving problems.
Yeah.
You have a really interesting way of working out where you commit yourself to something for like 3 years, and that's the only thing you do for every single day. From holding a kettlebell, like the way that you live life is so inspiring and attractive. Like I want to like learn more about why your brain works the way that it does. What is it about working out and just having it for 3-year stints of doing something for so long? When did that become a thing? Why did it become a thing?
I don't know. Maybe I just felt good. I was chasing dopamine. I was chasing a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the way I felt when I was in the pool and construction business because I physically worked every day and I sweat every day. And when I went to Wall Street and I sat on a trading desk, I didn't feel as good, and I wanted to feel good. And so I replaced that very manual labor I was doing for 15, 18-hour days, literally. And I brought it to the gym. And I, at a very young age, I was 13 years old. Somebody sent me a clipping recently. I was 13 years old and I bicycled 75 miles in each direction to go to a bike race my mother wouldn't drive me to, in a BMX bike. So imagine, I did it with two friends. Imagine 75 miles on a one-speed BMX bike in each direction, and go race and then bike home. So like, I had a taste for it. I probably felt how great stuff like that feels, and I just kept chasing it. And I need to have it every day. And then why shake it up every 3 years? Well, like anybody, you get bored of something. I'm on this 7/8 Smurf kick that I do, every morning. I go on a probably 3 to 4 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 100 reverse lunges, and then I do some other little workouts through the day. But I do it every day. I gotta do it every day.
That hour and a half in the morning, it's a staple. It's a part of who you are. I love it when I heard that you phrase it of you got to earn your breakfast. I always thought same thing for my coffee too. It's like if I don't do something before I get coffee, it's like it just feels wrong to me. And I think that reward system, it works for us if we're trying to better our life in some way. And I think that I think we're in the place now in the world where cigarettes are looked upon in a negative frame and a good reason. And for a long time, it was seen as just something that you do. It wasn't seen really in a negative frame. What would you say is the modern day version of cigarettes today? Something that we'll look on in the future and look down upon?
For sure, sitting.
Yeah.
Sitting all day. Devices. Head down, 8-pound head down. Look, before I got to Croatia, I was in Saudi. I was in the Middle East for a bit. I was shocked. What I'm about to describe is not just in Saudi, it's everywhere, but I was shocked. People indoors, people outdoors, people working, people on construction sites, everywhere. Midday, morning, night, staring at their phone, outside, inside, just looking at that phone. That's a death sentence. Happens to me, happens to you. We're all doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're sitting as we speak right now, right? We're having a conversation, and it works that way, going through computers. I mean, it's the way the world is nowadays, and it's difficult that it works that way. I'm curious for you, from where you're at now, is there a habit or a skill that you wish you developed earlier in your life, or something that you look back on now that you realize has really had a big impact on your life?
What do I don't really have many regrets, which is good. You don't want to have a lot of regrets. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes I wish I didn't make. Yes, I've been asked a similar question, and I guess patience. I guess I wish I had some patience, but I still don't have them. Working on it.
Yeah, I've heard you phrase it that way, and I was curious if there was anything that came up for you because, yeah, I find, like I said earlier, the longevity that you've had in your career, in every career, it seems like you've had success in everything that you've done. Would I be wrong by saying that?
I mean, I finally got to the top of the mountain and everything I've done, but you don't see how deep the caves were along the way that I was doing some spelunking in. I was way down in the depths in all three of these careers. And, what I'm still experiencing from the hangover from the pandemic for us in the event business is, it's a 1,000-pound stone that I got to drag every day.
Unimaginable. From the way of how I've heard you explain it on other podcasts. And that actually leads me to a question that I'm curious about, because I think this is something that isn't talked enough about in the conversation that I've had you or listened to you have earlier, is from the mob when you were doing the pool business, you had 700 clients working with them. And then a lot of people really helped keep you afloat during COVID for Spartan. How have you been able to cultivate such relationships that help you succeed? Because that's something I don't see you talk about.
Look, I tell all my kids and their friends 3 things you got to do for success. There's a lot of things to do, but these 3 are important because I wanted to make it succinct. Number 1, communicate like a movie star. You've got to be able to communicate your ideas really well. People have to like you. You got to give energy to them, not take it from them. People have to want to be around you. So as long as you're constantly putting money in the bank with your network and your friends, and you're adding value, when you need help, they show up. And trust me, everybody's going to need help at some point. So put money in the bank with relationships, communicate well, provide energy. Number two, I say you got to work like an immigrant. You got to work your ass off. You got to work harder than anybody ever. And it's going to suck, but you got to do it. And then number three, be really grateful. Be grateful you have friends. Be grateful you're alive. Be grateful you get to work. You get to do the hard stuff. You know, I don't know where I picked it up, probably from my mom, my dad. I don't know how the hell maybe because I saw guys going to jail. I don't know. But I am, even when it sucks, I'm grateful that I get, oh my God, but it's raining out and it's awesome. And I feel alive. Oh, you know, it sucks. I was just doing the race this weekend in Croatia. It sucked. There were moments where I was feeling it. And I want to know how many kilometers are left on this thing I created. But yet I found a beekeeper on the side of the mountain. I went and I got some honey from the bee, and I was like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe I got to meet a beekeeper and got some honey. And I went through this cave and I was exhausted, and I saw this old, 1,000-year-old olive press that it was like the wheel of death in Conan the Barbarian, and I got to push it around. It's like, this is unbelievable. How would I ever run into one of those? And then we were probably like 5 kilometers left, and we're on the beach, and there was this little entrepreneur that had this like broken down shack on the beach. He was playing some music, and his truck had pulled up, and he was pulling out some like orange juice and water, and that he was setting up his beach shop for the day. And I sat at his bar, and I had a glass of orange juice, and I pinched myself, and I said, this is unbelievable. I can't believe I'm getting to do this. And I'm listening to 1970s rock and roll for a minute. And then I ran into some rusted chains that were an obstacle that we had to carry into the water and back. And I looked at the guy that was doing the race with me, who spoke no English, and I speak no Spanish. So the whole race we did together, he was wearing a helmet. He looks like Conan the Barbarian. He's tanned up. The girls were going crazy for him. And we stayed together the whole race. He was kind enough to stay with me. And I looked at him, I looked at the chains, and he just grunted. And so we grabbed the chains, and we decided, for the last 2-3 miles, we were going to carry the chains in just for a little extra suffering. And some of the folks that work for me didn't know me, said, no, you can't take the chains. I said, no, I'm taking the chains. Don't worry. I own the business. And they were kind enough to let me go. And me and my boy Diego and his friend, I don't even know his name, we carried the chains in the rest of the way. It sucked. It was on my neck. It was killing me. We had already been out there for longer than I wanted to be. It was hot. It was sunny. I could see there were more obstacles. But while all that was going through my head, I was like, I get to do this. I'm alive. I'm not in jail. I have all my fingers, my toes, my leg. Like somehow I have gratitude. So communicate like a movie star, build that network, work like an immigrant, and then have gratitude like a monk.
I love it. The gratitude is so impactful. It's amazing to hear that perspective. I remember, I think it was Bob Marley that said it once, but he said that some people, when it rains, just get wet, and other people feel the rain. And I was like, I really like that perspective, because it's the same thing. It's like, I used to hate rain. Now I think of it when it's happening, and I'm like, man, let me feel it a little bit more, because I'm just getting wet right now, and that does not feel good at all. Like I said earlier, I think that what you've done in every career, it seems you've had success. What are some of the unobvious reasons, looking back now, that you've been able to find success?
I think it's, believe it or not, I think it's those 3 things. I think I think that's exactly what it is. I think I pay attention if the person I'm selling something to or getting to know, if they're getting burnt out on my conversation, or they've had enough, or they're busy with something else, I sense it and I hang up, like move on, and I'll be respectful of their time, so I don't suck energy from their life. I certainly work hard. I don't think I would ever be accused of not working hard. And then I'm grateful, and people probably feel that and recognize it. So no magic tricks. Definitely not the smartest guy. Definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed. Just one foot in front of the other.
Is there something that you spent a lot of time on that, because I kind of use this podcast as a way of like trying to get almost like a shortcut in life, not literally, but figuratively. And I'm curious, is there something that you spend a lot of time on, whether it was mental or physical, that you think me or my audience should skip entirely? I know you said patience was something that you really try to develop.
Well, definitely don't spend money. Like, just don't spend money. Like, there's no need. There's so many things that anybody that's my age would tell you guys, you didn't need, you don't like, you get away with a lot less. And it is a virtuous circle. You start making some money, you start spending some money, you need more money. Like, so just save the money, figure out ways to invest it so that you're getting return. And then hopefully when you're, 56 years old, like me, you've got optionality, because you could party away your 20s and 30s, and you could argue, like some people do, well, I'm not going to be young again, I got to have fun or whatever. But then maybe you're suffering in your 40s and 50s and 60s trying to keep a roof over your head, or maybe you want a family then. So definitely don't spend the money, and don't spread yourself too thin. I've definitely made that mistake a lot. Figure out what works. If something doesn't, learn, iterate, go back, press forward. Doesn't work, learn, iterate, press forward again. But don't be too spread out. I'm way too, I got too many things, way too many things going on. Love, my dream is to narrow some of that focus.
Yeah. I'm going to say, it seems like you're the kind of person that loves it, but also, like, you're really diligent about going in on one thing, but you love having a lot of things going on, it seems.
I do love a lot of things going on.
You've been able to write a few books too, which takes a hell of a lot of time to put into words and be concise with things. Is there a book that has really resonated with you, that maybe it's a mantra or a way of life, or something you learned about yourself through writing books? Because I find a lot of authors, what they get the most from is writing the book, not a book that they really read.
I mean, you got to read The Endurance about Shackleton, the great explorer. You got to read Adrift, about a guy who was stuck at sea for 72 days. Shogun is a great. I mean, you see a theme here. Any characters that are just suffering unimaginable experiences but somehow get through, I'm all into. Fountainhead, love the book Fountainhead. Love Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Those are my big books. I'm also a micro consumer of, like, if I'm in an airport and I got a little extra time, I'll quickly go through at a magazine stand, 20 or 30 topics in different magazines. I consume lots of little bits and pieces of information.
It seems you've always had that belief within yourself that you can pretty much do anything. Like, if your mind is behind you, then your body can do whatever it needs to do. Has that always been a belief that you've had, or is that something that you've had to build through doing things?
There was a moment my dad was having me do some construction work. It's a silly one. There was a big boulder that he asked me to move, and it was just too big. I couldn't move it. I spent like hours. I was trying. He was probably looking at me from a distance. I didn't even notice. I went up to him. I said, "Can't move it. It's too big." He said, "Oh, no problem. I'll get somebody who can." And I went back and I moved it. And so then that and other things in my life led to, like, you pretty much can do anything. I love when my team says I can't do this, I'm like, Elon Musk got a rocket to come back and land on Earth. You're telling me we can't do this? We can't move the venue? You pretty much do anything.
Yeah. Can't is a belief. And it's the core of this podcast, is unlearning those beliefs that didn't serve us, don't serve us, and we've been fed. And that isn't the way that we have to live life, but it's the way we've been living life. Like I said earlier, you're someone that's really, really committed to, when you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And I love that perspective, because it's something for me that when people ask me what is success, I say my standards. If I'm doing what I said I would do, I am successful. The results are just a gravy at that point, because if I'm doing what I said I would do, I'm good with myself. You moved when Spartan started. You moved a year in Singapore, a year in Tokyo, a stint in China, Canada, Boston, Florida. You even did some stuff in Malaysia, just talking about so many different places that you've been. Was there any place that has really stuck with you where you think everyone should go?
I love the farm in Vermont. I love Vermont.
Oh, yeah.
If you had to put a gun to my head and say you have to live in a city the rest of your life, you live in Tokyo for sure.
I've heard you. Yeah, it seems like
If
you
you
love to.
put a gun to my head and said you have to live in a suburb, it'd be in Vancouver, suburbs of Vancouver for sure. So country, Vermont, suburb, Vancouver, city, Tokyo.
Amazing. I've heard you say a lot about Tokyo. It seems like it's a great place. Is there a mindset, a habit, a belief, a way of life that you lived that at the beginning of your career you lived by, but today you've maybe even completely gone against?
I think I was taking more risks when I was younger. Somebody said to me at a young age, "Now's the time to do it. You're not married. You don't have kids. You don't have a responsibility. Take some risks." And I probably took too many risks. I think if I had to do it again, when I listened, I just watched on the flight back from Croatia. I watched the documentary on Carl Icahn and folks that are uber successful. And I was in that world at a much smaller scale. They just figured out like risk reward, things that have low risk but potential really, really high reward are places where they fish. And I probably fished in really risky places.
When you say you took too many risks, do you mean like the actual risks that you took were too risky, or like you specifically took too many? Like you just spread yourself too thin too early?
I think the actual risks I took with money investing, except were too risky. You know, these guys, these very successful men and women, they figure out where do you play with high reward, low risk.
I have two more questions for you. I appreciate your time immensely. You have gone to the depths of really finding out what you're capable of in so many facets, and it's why Spartan has become what it is. When people come into a Spartan race, what do you think they're looking for, and what do you think they leave with?
I think they're looking for change. I think they're looking for community. They're looking to get outdoors. We spend 95% of our lives indoors, and I think they find it. They find change. They find community. They get outside. They find adventure.
My last question to you is a question I ask every guest. My question to you is, what belief are you currently unlearning?
Yeah, I would say I'm unlearning. I'm learning how to be more narrowly focused, be more patient, not have chips all over the table.
Thank you so much for your time. Excited to see you in about a month from now and get it going, man. All of your links and everything will be in the show notes, of course, but is there anywhere or anything you'd like to direct people to?
Have people send me an email if they want, joe@spartan.com. Keep it 3 sentences or less. Follow me on Instagram. We got a newsletter goes out every week, The Hard Way. Love for you to help promote that. And there's a woman you should get on the podcast, Gwendolyn Bounds, Wall Street Journal writer. Gwendolyn Bounds found Spartan at 50 years old. And great story. Just wrote a book.
Love it. Thank you so much.
All right. You're awesome.